So good morning, good evening, welcome back again to the Easy Talk. It is another return of the Easy Talk. Easy Talk means it's Friday. Friday is the Easy Talk, and we're going to see how this one rolls out. Actually, we're rolling with the punches, much like Arsenal, just rolling the punches. Yeah, we've got Paul Marinello. Paul Geezer.
Hi guys.
Marinello.
The Chuckabina Postel. The Chuckabina Post. Glenwyn, how you been? How you been keeping?
I am very well, thank you. I'm glad to be in the company of Paul and my terrible twins on the side.
Every time I scratch my ear, you're going to have to scratch your ear now.
Yeah, we'll have to go over
the I know that you can see the H-men are in the building.
The henchmen are in.
Right, well, Tim, did Arsenal? I don't like to use the phrase Arsenal bottled it, because when you look at Man City this season, they're a different beast.
Yeah,
Champions League final, FA Cup final, all kinds of finals. But your take on the slight lapse?
My take on it is quite simple. I'm after listening or reacting about Ivan Toney earlier, about how he got suspended for whatever gambling, right? And I said, like, why does Ivan Toney get suspended for gambling? Now, I'm not saying that what he did was right, but like, Man City are standing in front of 115 charges of financial doping. And I'm not saying they're guilty or they're innocent. That law will be decided at a later stage. But that's the level of competition you are working against. If Arsenal were not competitive this year, the Premier League would have been over on St. Patrick's Day. It's as simple now as that Arsenal have kept the thing competitive. Arsenal themselves have really developed a lot. Like, has been a brilliant season for Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli. Saka, firstly, actually, he's the most first player I want to mention. Like, Saka, we're not only propping up Arsenal, he was propping up England. He was, I'd say it was pure fatigue. Like, really, when you look back on this, the Liverpool game where they were 2-0 up, the West Ham match, 2-0 up, and like the Southampton game, it was pure fatigue. Like, they just ran out of steam. They couldn't keep going. They hadn't the squad depth. Like, Man City are possibly going to go on now and win the treble. But let's say we'll just concern about the Champions League first. People said that the other night, and I watched a good bit of it, it was over at the half time, but Jack Grealish was the star. Everything is about Jack Grealish now. Man City paid £100 million for Jack Grealish 2 seasons ago, and he spent most of last season on the bench. And they did something very similar with what's his name, Mahrez, young man from Leicester. Yeah. They did the same with him. They can buy these players, spend exorbitant sums of money on them, spend a whole year almost kind of conditioning them, and then they bring him in. No other club, not alone the Premier League, in hardly Europe can afford to do this. And I do believe, I love one phrase that Pep Guardiola, he cannot win the Champions League without an M. He had Messi in Barcelona, and he has money in Man City. Look, I can say that's not bitterness in the sense that the matches are there to be won. Arsenal made, really, you'd have to say it highlighted weaknesses as well. No, definitely the centre of our midfield, Partey. Jorginho actually looks like a player. You can see how he was involved in so many successful teams. But of course, we're getting the latter stages of him now. And the other thing that I feel is when Saliba went out of the centre of our defence, it just collapsed. That was the big problem. We didn't have the depth. We don't, poor old Rob Holding, good player, was all right when you were going for 7th, 8th, and maybe up along there. But when you were talking about trying to win it, he's not the squad. He doesn't have he's actually indicative of the type of player that you cannot afford to have in your 20 players that you're going to use over a season to win a Premier League. He just doesn't have that quality of that he can be rolled in when the need is greatest. And I would have small question marks, well, maybe significant question marks over the performance of, I'm going to pronounce his name terribly now here, Kiwar or whatever his name is. And I felt he went down very easily from a very small bit of pressure from Evan Ferguson.
Yeah, I thought he went there, but having said that, I mean, I don't know what you guys. I mean, I felt he should have got himself back up no matter what. But
Yeah.
he was caught, and anywhere else on the pitch, that's a foul. And look, I'm not taking away because it was a bad performance against Brighton, and we've had a couple of those, lately. But I thought it was a bit I thought he's caught him. And that has stopped him from being able to play on. So VAR, another example where, for me, I think we were unfortunate. But would you see Tony Adams, Martin Keown, Nigel Winterburn, Lee Dixon? I mean, I'm not harking back to the old days, but I'm old-fashioned, and I like to see a centre half or a defender bite into the tackle. And if you get beat by quality, like City have got quality over the park, c'est la vie, but never ever be beaten by desire and to play through pain. And so there is a question mark over that young man, and I think he needs to learn from it.
Yeah, lads, can I say that?
Sorry, I want to ask Paul a question very, very quickly. Tim was talking about the amount of money that Man City have spent. Spending that amount of money doesn't really always guarantee success, does it? You still got to coach the players.
Yeah. Alex, you never said, like, Chelsea have spent more at Christmas than Germany, France, Italy, and Spain combined. And Graham, watching around De Zebra, he's had great success. Since he took over with Potter, but possibly Potter keeping Chelsea in the Premier League is the success story of this year.
Yeah.
Well, it is. But listen, the thing about it is what they've done. He scattergunned it, and at the moment it's not working. It takes time to gel. You've got players who are really hacked off because they know they're not going to be in the picture. They're not going to get a chance, and it's not great from squad. You're going to have factions. And it's not great for squad morale. So for me, that's going to have something to do with it. But Arsenal have a togetherness,
yes,
right, which is great. But in the end of the day, City are an outstanding football team. We've got some way to go, and like what you were saying, it would have been over by St. Patrick's Day. Completely agree. We've got players there, good professionals, but it's time for Arteta to be ruthless. There is some unbelievable bargains in that transfer window, and maybe not necessarily go for all of them, but there's some unbelievable players out there that would improve Arsenal. And the other question I've got for anybody, listening, or you guys here, is that I personally feel that some of the players within the team were played almost too much, because in the last 6 or 7 games, I felt that Saka and Martinelli were a little bit stale. I mean, they're still wonderful, gifted football players, and they can still do things that other players can't. But I felt they were off the boil because we were consistently using them, and we weren't using Smith Rowe, we weren't using Reece Nelson enough. You look at what Pep was doing, and Pep, he was Bernardo Silva off the bench, Gundogan off the bench, using different people all the time, keeping the players happy, keeping the players fresh, keeping the players fit. I mean, maybe Arteta didn't trust the players enough. If he doesn't, and going back to your point, Alex, maybe, or was it your point that have we got a strong enough? We need to have player for player that are exactly the same or as close near as damn it, and then we may have an opportunity to challenge properly, because we've been short. We were 8 points clear. We were 2-0 up against Liverpool until Xhaka decided to wind the crowd up. And for me, he's a young manager who's done great, but there's mistakes made. Zinchenko at left back, because he's inverted, he leaves his spaces in behind, and teams have caught on, and he's been culpable for a lot of goals. Don't get me wrong, I love him as a football player. I think he should play in midfield. But for me, if you play him at left back, we're susceptible. That's not having a go at the bloke. It's because that's how Arteta wants to play. But I don't understand why Tierney wasn't brought in at Liverpool, because that was a perfect game that we need. We need someone with grit in that back four when we haven't got Saliba. You know, you could have played Tierney left side centre half because he's strong. He does it for Scotland. I've said it before, and maybe not because he's Scottish, but you know, for me, I'd like us to get to be really, really strong. We'll talk about Kiwoya, you know. Hopefully he learns from that and knows what it means to be an Arsenal centre half. You know, to attack, to you know. Look, people make mistakes. I mean, Adams back in the day, I mean, he was criticised for years, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he started to mature and become an outstanding centre half. And hopefully that will happen to this Polish lad. But you know, we'll see. But I just feel there's lots of bargains out there. I mean, Zaha could get on a free transfer from Palace. You could. I mean, listen, it was Talk in the Express. Did anyone see the Talk in the Express?
No,
Did you ever see that? I was just having a browse over it. You know, Arsenal could go for Messi. I doubt it very much. but you know, but there is players out there that could come in and strengthen us, but we'll have to spend big money. I mean, get one of Rice or Caicedo, you know, one of those two. But that's very, very expensive.
Yeah.
You know,
like another thing, which I think now we're all kind of coaches here. Everyone's an interested coach, but the thing is, I think, and everyone can maybe suffer from this, is that he brought Partey in. He looked kind of at the start that he wasn't really good. Then he improved him a bit, but when it came to going to the next level, like those Spanish midfielders, they come from a league where it's slower tempo. That when the real pressure came on, like I mean, I know it's only one micro incident, but I remember watching the Southampton match, and like that performance from Arsenal was so. I know it's only 3-3 draw, but they came back from the dead, like they came right. And I remember Partey got a ball, like this was the 89th minute now, but Southampton. They were like a turkey at Christmas. They were nervous at all occasions. Like every time the ball passed half an hour. I remember Partey just misused the ball, shot from ridiculous angle. He didn't get the concept of pressure. You know, that continuous retention of the ball that you kind of have to read, which is really is the Arsenal way. Like this
I never thought I would say this. I never thought I would say this because I watched Partey at Atletico Madrid against Liverpool. Maybe about 4 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago, and he was outstanding. His intensity was there, his passing was good. He was a rock, and he came to Arsenal, and he started off okay. Then all of a sudden, he got injured. Then he was really, really poor. Then he came again, but then all of a sudden, a few games he's not been wonderful. He's not been at it. We really can't afford that to happen. Jorginho's been a goodbye, and I think he's done really well, and he's earned that right to be in there. Yeah. But Partey's been incredibly disappointing. I thought that was his twin brother playing in some games. Maybe
so I don't think we have the right bloke.
It's funny thing is that Casemiro, I remember reading early in the year that Casemiro was the biggest or most significant signing that Man United had since Eric Cantona, right? Next year, picking up red cards like they're going out of fashion. Like, I mean, they come, there's a blast in them. Next thing they realize, I have to do this every week and twice a week, sometimes. So in other words, it gets very, very kind of competitive. You have to really have resilience. And like, it's really about, I actually remember when Saka, when he started first, he was just such a beautiful footballer. Like, now he kind of glided along he was beautiful to watch and everything. But the one thing I've noticed most about him over the last, 3 or 4 seasons is how physically strong he's got. Like, and a lot of that is because he gets targeted. Fullbacks are taking him on. They don't mind leaving the old studs in. He
gets no protection at all. No protection. But the thing is, this is it. I mean, the Brighton guy, Caicedo, he absolutely butchered Martinelli. Mind you, Martinelli did go. I don't know, he went in with the elbow first. It was a bit of retribution. But, you know, I just want this weekend. It's a tough game away at Forest. But do you know what? Reiss Nelson deserves a shout. He deserves some game time. Smith Rowe deserves some game time because they've been in the squad there and abouts. We're guaranteed second. For me, like I said, I believe we needed to say to Reiss Nelson and Smith Rowe in some of the games, on you go, and keep Saka and Martinelli fresh. West Ham, keep one of them on the park or if you need to. But I just feel that, we've got the Trossard, people like that as well. Jesus, I mean, look, he holds the ball up, but what threats? I'm just thinking, does he always give us a threat? Eddie Nketiah, sometimes freshen that up. Don't always play the same. Make sure the players are playing for their place. There's no big time Charlie, so to speak.
Yeah.
We need. Centre forward again. There's another thing. Do we believe Jesus is the one that's going to score 20, 30 a season? I rate him highly as a player, but we're trying to get close to one of the best teams that have probably ever played. Because let's be honest, City are incredibly good, wonderful football team. So Arsenal, Arteta needs to be incredibly ruthless, and that sounds horrible, but people like Smith Rowe, he needs to play him or let him go and play football. The kid's a talented boy.
Here's a scenario for you. I've been thinking this whole week about is that why did Arsenal play so well from the word go, from the first game of the season, and the last couple of games since the Liverpool game, as you mentioned, we fell out of the bus. I thought that the players they could do it, but they were scared of winning. They don't know how to handle to go to the extent of winning, and I think that is where the philosophy should have come in. Whereas the backroom staff, like the psychologist and those type of guys, have to come in around them and say. I mean, even our senior guys, they weren't seen on the pitch because everybody was relying on the Parteys, the Zinchenko's, the Xhakas, the senior guys, the Jorginhos that have been in those positions already. So the youngsters were so scared to contain the pressure and going on further, to be fearful in winning the games they need to win. I mean, to go to the Anfield ground, to be 2 up and you lose a lead of 2-0 and possibly could have lost the game by a penalty they've missed and all sort of chances that were saved by Ramsdale. So those guys got so in a fearful frenzy to say, but we can do it, but we don't know how to contain the pressure. And thereafter, it's a hell of a thing to think of. You've come so far, 93% of the league, you've been on top. And now you soak up the pressure that everybody's been saying that you're not going to make it, you're not going to win the league. And you became fearful of winning the league. And that is on the backroom staff. So that had to come around the players and say, but this is it, just go enjoy yourself. And Paul, you made a valuable point. Rest Saka, rest Martinelli. You can even rest, why you bring, what's
Kivior
his name, Kivior, in at such a late stage? Kivior, sorry. You're bringing him in such a late game. You could have started him in the lesser important games rather, and give him that bit of reel him into a bit of experience in the league. He's done well in the 2 games, but he still has a lot to learn. So
someone's kept a record of which teams which managers change their teams and bring on subs and don't always play the sort of same team. And we're at the bottom of that league.
Completely.
Not like changing his first 11, and that's a massive fault. He doesn't trust anything outside maybe his best 13 or 14 players. Lads, I'd like to say one thing which we've all forgotten. As Tim said at the start, Man City have got 115 charges against them. Now, if any of us on here had 115 charges against you, are you getting off? No. No. And I swear, if Arsenal had 115 charges against them, are they getting off? No. So, what you've got, I think, do you know what? If it was a level playing field, it would be lovely if Man City were found guilty on at least half of those and had maybe 10 points stripped. Yeah. Then suddenly you've got a competitive league again. That's one of the most crucial things. One other thing to say is that Pep Guardiola, I'll quote him now, he's quoted as saying, if your 11 players on the pitch, man for man, are not at least as good as the opposition, no tactics come into it. Tactics only come in.
That's fair, because let's be honest, just go back to old school, okay? Each player, you win your battle, okay? The goal's there, the goal's there. Tactics do help to a degree, but if you win your battle against your opponent, you win the ball, you pass the ball, you keep the ball well, and you look for incisive opportunities, you run off the ball, you do everything you're supposed to do, then you've got an opportunity. You've got more of an opportunity to win. There's players. I mean, Arsenal we're really a long way from where we were, right? That's the positives. But we still last year. Don't forget, when it came to the crunch last year, we wilted, and I honestly didn't want to believe it, but I thought we would wilt, unfortunately. And I was honest with my closest friends, and I said, I think we'll wilt. And I didn't want that to happen, of course. But, for the exception of what I felt, the one player that didn't was Odegaard. Okay, he didn't play great against City. He didn't get the ball much, and he was down. But generally, Odegaard has been the go-to guy. He has been terrific. And we need, but the problem is now, something happens to him. So, okay, look who are going to be opportunities in the summer. You've got people like, you could go get Caicedo, but they're more of a holding player. Rice, more of a holding player. What about Maddison? Okay, I don't know. But because what Pep's doing at the moment is, if you've got these guys in midfield, he's bringing on Bernardo Silva, hasn't played, and he comes on and scores 2 goals against Real Madrid. We need that level, and we're slowly getting better because we've got people like Trossard, very, very good football player, but can he replace Martinelli or down, on that side? I don't think he's quite as quick. No one's as quick as Martinelli. I mean, even Eddie turned around in an interview and said, "Who's the quickest at Arsenal?" And Eddie Nketiah straight away, Martinelli. Martinelli for me is we must keep him. He is the most important player for us. I put him before, him and Odegaard. I put him before Saka because he scores. He creates for me just as much, and he scores, and his stats are better than Saka's in terms of goals. But if we go and get the right players, I'll tell you what, we could be some team as well. Yeah. And we could really keep on the momentum next year. But he needs to go, and he needs to go get those players. He needs another centre-half, getting that midfield sorted out. So just in case something happens, and we need a forward that can just, all he does is score goals. What do you guys think?
Yes, the thing with Arteta, I mean, I've made a video, and Alex will tell you, is that Arteta has been stubborn. We've been talking about Arteta's stubbornness for a long time. He's plan A. It doesn't seem like there's a plan B, a C, or D that exists in Arteta's books, because it's only plan A. Because plan A has worked for him for the longest time in the season. He didn't have to have a plan B. And when it came to that point of having a plan B, he could not have a plan B, because everything fell into place since the start of the season up until he started to struggle. And that plan A could only work up and that far. So there was no plan B because of his stubbornness. He needs to, as you say, Paul, he needs to be ruthless. He said it in an interview, I think it was a season ago, where he said he's going to be ruthless. It's pointless talking about being ruthless and not doing it on the pitch. I mean, if you need to strip somebody of their play, I mean, he did it with Martinelli. And what happened when Martinelli came back? Boom, he's a different player. He started scoring goals and. So you need to let your favorite players sit down on the bench and bring in the likes that, I mean,
even to get a reaction. You're completely right.
Yeah.
Just take Vieira over Smith Rowe. What can Vieira bring to you? Nothing. Smith Rowe has got a forward-thinking play. Vieira doesn't do anything. So
I think his backroom team are yes men, and that's what's worrying me. He's got Steve Brown. You never see him. He's got Stuyvenberg now. Anybody who's taught kids or done third level work, you're reading people all the time. You're reading their reaction, and he sucks up to Arteta all the time. Well, Arteta, do you remember when Arteta was assistant to Pep? Sometimes Pep would say, I had no idea, we couldn't beat the team in front of us, and I left it to Arteta, and Mikel thought of a way of doing it. And Pep would always defer to him and praise him. When have we ever heard Arteta go, do you know what? Steve Round said something to me. Albert Stuyvenberg said something to me. Carlos Cuestra said something. These are all guys that are surrounding him. And yet he never ever defers to them and praises them. And I just wonder whether he's holding it all too much into himself. And therefore you will get this very kind of, this is my team and I haven't got enough. He also might have been trying to make a political point, which is to say to Kroenke, because apparently Kroenke met him straight after the last match and they went and had a long discussion. And maybe he's saying to Kroenke, listen, I've got a good 12, 13, 14 players, but I haven't got what Man City had, which is 22 top players. That might be in it.
Yeah. Well, that will be. I mean, there's rumours that they've got a kitty at 250 million, isn't it? I mean, but the problem you've got is that we all know what's going to happen here. You know that what I do not want them to do is they should be going into West Ham and saying, right, negotiate. We'll buy Rice now, boom for this, or Caicedo. Make the decision who they're going to go for. Go for it. Put a reasonably good offer in and say, we're going to do it and do the deal now. Do the deal quickly. You know, there's a good point here. I think someone's mentioned on the side that they put a comment. You know, a lot of the guys on the bench, you know, are getting probably pissed. But are getting a little bit, you know, frustrated because they're only getting a few minutes here and there. I mean, Reece Nelson's not looking to sign a contract now. That'd be a shame. That kid come on the other day, looked hungry, come inside, put a strike off. Look. I don't know. We haven't seen enough of him to determine whether he can do it. But he needs to give these players an opportunity to show what they can do. The last two games, if we're second anyway, let's do that. And he has a look at those players and he can make a decision on them.
This new squad, you're talking about playing Champions League next year. These players are going to be playing a lot more high-end football anyway. So the whole thing is that you're going to, even though you will have depth, that depth will be like tested.
Be tested hugely, yeah.
From early on. And another thing, which I will say, the one bit of praise I will have for him is that after the three, we'll say, matches, the Liverpool, West Ham, and Southampton matches, that when they went to Newcastle,
they were brilliant, yeah.
Yeah, they were brilliant. They're still there. They're still a very strong team, and that really would indicate that they have players that are capable of really challenging at the very top end. And like you have to say, the age profile is very, very healthy. And hopefully Arteta himself, and as Terry pointed out, maybe like he's a relatively young coach, that he still should be on the learning curve himself, and that he might be able to analyze himself, like look at his own like weaknesses and possible threats to his own position, and maybe build to create a more rounded coaching structure, which what I would say is an extremely kind of open, like young players are always open to ideas, and he's very lucky that he has some of the more talented young players that are in the Premier League. So he's very lucky from that point of view.
Well, I totally agree. But again, I think my dad went to the Leeds game last year. I think it was the penultimate one towards the end of the season. And I think he saw the squad in one of the hotels. I don't know, we mentioned it last time we was on. And what he said was, they look so very young. Now, there's a lot of players coming to getting frees. Gundogan's likely to go to Barcelona, but I'll tell you what, why not go and try and be sneaky and try and get, you know, why not get some, and you imagine bringing someone of that quality in. I know I keep banging on, but Zaha, if we're losing Reiss Nelson, Zaha, someone that can make things happen, can go by players, got pace. The one thing, you know, there's Martinelli that does that, and there's Saka occasionally does it. But you know, if we could have something different, and obviously we sent like a centre half now. Now, why everyone's saying Tierney's going? I mean, Tierney can play centre half and he's left. I don't understand it. I just don't. Why doesn't he play him more often? Because I love. He's not as quality on the ball as Zinchenko. I accept that. But he's a defender's defender. And if you play against Man City, you ain't going to outplay them. We needed to have a plan, like going what you were saying before, a plan B or a plan C to say, well, stifle them.
Yeah, and also Tierney, as you say, he can play centre-back, he can play left-back. And if you notice, his biggest problem always was injuries, because he was overplayed by Celtic, and in his early days at Arsenal, overplayed. Now that they're not overplaying him, he's not picking up their injuries. So the worst thing we could do, we
let him go.
Well, we don't even know if Saliba's staying, do we?
Well, no. Well, who's looking reportedly? Who is? I'll tell you what. You look at the reports and look at the teams interested in Tierney. Man City and Newcastle. Well, I think they know a few things. A little bit. Yeah. So have a think about that and let it digest. Why are they interested? Because they recognise a defender. And although listen, I commend Arteta for want to play in a set way. Because we play a set way, we play a really lovely brand of football. But you need, the end of the day, the best brand of football is a winning brand of football. You need to have a blend and you need to have a balance. That's just my opinion.
Paul, very quickly, Paul, we spoke about Emile Smith-Rowe. What is Emile Smith-Rowe's best position? Is he a number 10? Is he a number 8?
Well, that's a very, very good point. Because there's rumours are that they're playing in because Xhaka's going. There's rumours are in training he's playing in that particular role. So you know, we know he's great on the ball. We know he's clever, and we know he's a gifted guy. His biggest problem has always been picking up the injuries. And he's 23, 24 now. Or you know. Him and Reiss Nelson need to get regular game time for their careers.
I'll say now as well, I like Reiss Nelson. I've always liked him. I thought the boy lacked confidence, so I don't know why they aren't boosting his confidence. And there's nothing I've seen from him that doesn't tell me the boy's got a future in a top club. So just give him a decent contract. You can always sell him in a year's time if it hasn't worked out. But don't let these boys go. We
don't want to. But the thing is that the problem is similar to that little message that the guy mentioned. One of the guys that are watching has said is that when you're getting 10 minutes here and 50 minutes here as a player, it's demoralising. I mean, that's why my dad left Arsenal. Silly man, right? You know. But the point is, he didn't have anyone to recommend him. But his emotions. Because footballers, even now they're getting well paid, they still want to play football. That's what they do. That's what they train all week. And if you're getting 5 minutes and coming on in the 87th minute, what is a manager? You know, you don't feel loved. You don't feel special. You're not going to produce your best football because you feel pressurised. You don't want to make a mistake. You'll be safe. So it's a tough thing. I mean, of course it's a tough thing, but I just like to see him blood some of the players now, and then make a decision and keep the players he wants to keep, and be honest to the players he doesn't. And good luck to them who go, because you know some have been served. If Xhaka goes, Xhaka goes. You know, well done. He turned his career around at Arsenal. We know he cares. We know that he is what he is, and you know, I think he's done great.
He is what he is.
He's done great, but Jacques,
not a legend. He's not a legend.
No, certainly not. But listen. His discipline has let him down. But you know, when I looked in that documentary, it's hard not to get a like for him. But he sometimes does things that you think, really. But look, good luck to him. You know, he's you know. But that's what the Arsenal players need to look at. When you're down and out, you keep resilient, you keep strong, we come again. And if you know, and if Arteta can add, then we've got, you know, there's no reason why we can't be in the top four, because I don't see. I know Chelsea will improve, Man United will improve. I know they all will, but I think we will improve.
Oh yeah,
because.
Yeah.
And if he goes, listen, you imagine getting Rice and getting Declan Rice or Caicedo, one of those two. You imagine, and also getting someone like Zaha, you know, which is possibility. If he was,
Cancelo's name has been mentioned, but like I'd say that would be as a replacement for Tierney, to be honest.
Oh yeah, but that's it. I want to get a player that's got no teeth and has no, and basically will go through brick walls. Because I think all these nicey, passy, and I think we're too nice. We need an element of grit to get over the line. I'm not saying grit like kick someone off the park, because you get sent off for that kind of football these days. But grit into courage is not just going in for a slide tackle. Courage is getting on the ball and not being afraid to risk it. Odegaard makes risky passes, but he's got the courage of his convictions to do it. But he gets injured, and I worry for Arsenal. This is another thing. You look at someone like if Leicester go down, is Madison someone we could bring into the squad?
Yeah, good player.
You know,
even Ward-Prowse.
Sorry,
Ward-Prowse.
I've had some Southampton supporters are saying, look, you know, he's a great free kick taker, but passing wise, I don't know if he'd suit Arsenal. This is what they're telling me, because they go to Southampton more often than I do. But you know, Ward-Prowse, I mean, yeah, you're looking at all these players and you're thinking, well, they're there. There's options. It'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Did we talk about
what we're going to do with Eddie? I mean, Eddie needs more game time for me. You know? What do you guys think?
Is Ivan Toney someone worth having?
Oh, yes, and double yes. Trouble is January. He's not playing till January. I actually thought about. Listen, gambling for footballers, you know, they're not allowed to do it. Okay, we know this. But let's look at it specifically here. Is he was playing for different teams at the time, and he was gambling on different teams, and they've given him an 8-month ban. Well, maybe he had a problem. Maybe he had a gambling problem, and maybe he needs help rather than being hammered. I don't know. I don't know the full stuff, but if it was serious, he would have got massive charges against him, and he would have been banned.
He's going to be suspended now for 8 months. Ivan Toney has come up through the leagues. He's worn a lot of jerseys, obviously. A lot of those jerseys are advertising gambling companies.
Exactly.
Some of the leagues he has played in have been sponsored by gambling companies. I'm like, no, there's another thing.
Betting company.
Yeah, no, these are the whole thing. I mean, it's you can't pick out a player. I feel, I'll put it this way. We saw last night the West Ham match. I know it wasn't a Premier League match, but there was violence. There's an undercurrent of racism. There's a lot of other things in football that could be addressed, and I think with the same ferocity as gambling. They're two.
It's double standards. Double standards.
It's football. It's, as the saying goes, opium for the masses. It's played by all cultures, all people. The Premier League is the biggest league in the world. They should be setting out a very high standard on a lot of social issues. And I think gambling, if they want to be that hard on Ivan Toney, then they should look at themselves and say, well, we're going to have no more gambling companies either then.
And also, if Ivan Toney is gambling, but he's got his fingers burnt and he's got caught, how many other players are gambling, but they're giving the money to a mate? And stick a ton on that, stick a grand on that. That must be happening. It must be rife. So they've made an example of him unnecessarily. because it's going on. And Tim, what a perfect thing he said there. They're walking about saying, gamble, the best thing you can do. Wear a kit for your favourite club and get in there. You walk into Arsenal, the first thing you see when you go to the turnstiles is a place you can stick a bet on. So it's all about gambling. And the one thing the player can't do is gamble.
Well, I tell you what, sorry, go on, Clement.
It's the same for what's his name, Jurgen Klopp. Klopp has now been banned, I think, for the last 2 games for the thing with Paul Tierney. I mean, how many other managers has done what he has done, and they also don't get looked into. The same with, players that are being protected, clubs that are being protected. I mean, they're selective as their rules are subjective.
Yeah.
Well, what you have to do is sign the England captain, and then nobody.
My number one.
He can go back to the appeal in full view of everybody. Come out with what a betting slip.
Well, there's one for you. There's one for you. I've seen Kane in an Arsenal kit. Now, there's a question. Who would you rather have in an Arsenal kit next year, Kane or Tony? I'll tell you what, I'd take either of them.
Yeah, Kane is still like.
I'd take them.
Got another season.
That's
a good one, Paul.
Like and he's half Galway, so he must be good.
And he used to.
Listen. We don't want to be like the others. That you don't want to listen. For me, he's a terrific goal scorer, Kane. Right?
Yeah.
Listen, if he wanted to come to Arsenal, which I don't think he would, because he would be absolutely pillared. We know what happened to Sol. But the point is, he never relied on his pace. You still get 4 years from him.
Yeah, you would.
Whoa, but no, he wouldn't do it. But Tony is someone that you could get, and he would give you another dimension. The problem is it's January.
A physical dimension, but you don't have
the problem.
And then Saka, who's out of contract, so it's a free. It's a free. And you can give him. I mean, he loves Arsenal. He'd probably not charging you. I mean, I'd play for nothing myself.
The problem with Kane is he loves scoring against Arsenal. So that thing, having him there, he might score own goals. So.
Well, I mean, it's a tough. I mean, look. You look at players, and it's like everything else. You admire them from afar, but But as when you look at it, if I was the recruiting, you look for who's gonna make you the best possible team, and sometimes it's some of the players that you least expect. Jorginho come in, and a lot of us were thinking, "Oh, really?"
Jorginho has really impressed me. He's been a very good player, a real composite kind of midfielder. He's able to move the ball well, fits well into the system, complements Odegaard a little bit, I think, as well. So they kind of work well together. There's that kind of element, but I think, but not to go away from the Tony and Kane point is, Glenman made a very, very valid point early on. Plan B, there's tons of. While if you have physicality, you have an immediate plan B, like, you know what I mean? We have a highly developed plan A. It's very efficient and it does work like the 80% of the time, but you definitely need to have a leaning in some other direction, like to something. Like even at Christmas. I remember when Cancelo was got rid of, and they were whatever he was at Bayern Munich, wherever he went, and there's speculation, like that Arteta or not Arteta, that Pep has kind of lost the run himself. But he realigned his defence. He put Stones into kind of a half of defender, half a central midfielder, and he set up the kind of a different system. So in other words, you have to be adaptive mid-season, and that's probably one thing.
And look who he plays at the back. The one person that isn't technically proficient. The one person that for me is not technically that adept. But I'll tell you what, I'd have him in my team out every day to work, Walker, because he's so quick. And he in the big games, he plays him. He played him against Vinicius Jr., and the reason he played them because of his pace. and it's remarkable. You know, you need to have a proper solid defender that's quick. Yeah. You know, and it's nice to have all these technical players, but a football team is a blend. It's a blend of different skill sets, and you know, for me, we don't want, like when we had Wenger for a point of time, we had all of the same skill sets, and we couldn't mix it when you know, the athleticism when the tackles were flying. We need to have a little bit of both.
Yeah, and Kyle Walker actually mentioned the other night, he was interviewed. This is going back to the point about internal competition. He said, Joe, people were saying you played really well and against Vinicius Jr. and all that. But he said, if you were training against Jack Grealish since all this season, you'd play well again. So in other words, Arsenal don't have that internal competition. They're not being put, the 11 are there, and there's almost a E then. You know what I mean? You don't want that squad and putting each other in. And that's what's driving. That's really, I mean, ultimately, if Man City win this, it'll be the development of their squad over several years, and they learn from their mistakes. And look, I won't say more luck to them. More luck to them if they're found non-guilty on the financial doping charges. Like, you know, they have developed, and I think Arsenal are a club that are developing too. So we could learn a bit from them, but we are also a long way along our own journey with young players and a young manager. And I think that the future is bright. And Odegaard, I think he's so admirable in his attitude, how he carries himself. His work rate is brilliant. It's unbelievable. Like he's an example of how football kind of gets into kind of inspire young people. And I know that's maybe a bit cringy and it's not kind of over the top, but like he's so, Joe, you'd look at him and you kind of see he's always seems to be kind of sweat rolling off him, and he always seems to just really be driving the team in a positive direction. So like,
well, big players deliver.
Yeah, and he does deliver. Fairness,
That's what I'm saying. This is what we've got to start saying now. Our lads that we've been saying, showering praise of them for a long time. But in certain games, we now got to say next year, this is Arsenal, this is what we expect. We expect to be in the Champions League. We expect to be challenging for the league. We expect to be winning trophies. We should have won the Europa League. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
we should have really, you know, some of the players, the fringe players, let themselves down there because we should be. I know Sporting Lisbon are a decent side, but if you look at, you know, come on, we should. We're at home at the Emirates. We just need to beat them. We should be beating them, and you know, we should have a final to be looking forward to, because I don't think anybody would have stopped us if we'd have beaten Sporting Lisbon. I
think you're right. The sort of rot had started to set in then, you know, and we were overplaying players. We should have beaten them. We should have had Reece Nelson on earlier. We should have had some. We should have had Emile Smith Rowe was fit by then. Instead, we were whacking the same players out night after night, game after game. And when we look back at the season, that's been Arteta's number one fault. He hasn't trusted his, if you like, his fringe players, and he should have done. Even if you're only giving them, you know, maybe 60 minutes or something, get them on and give these guys, because, you know, most of our best players have looked very tired, very fatigued in the last two or three games. I mean, Southampton are going down. They're plummeting down. Yeah. And yet, look, they almost beat us, you know.
Well, I had to walk out of the room. My son was playing football that night, and I had to drop him off. And I was watching the game in between time. And then I was watching the game, and I just had to switch it off because I was too upset. Because I was going mad. Because I was thinking, what are you doing?
I remember watching the Man United match early in the year, and the Man United match was real, what I would call pressure cooker Arsenal. They shoved United back, they shoved them back, they just really killed them with pure pressure. And they were doing that for the last 10 minutes against Southampton, but they couldn't sustain it. Now, I don't want to be going harping on about the same player all the time, but one player in particular, it was the obvious that he just maybe mentally was fatigued, or maybe just couldn't keep up that tempo for a whole season that's required. And that's the one thing I have been impressed with Jorginho, is that he does look like a player. You could see how he was involved in, let's say, the Chelsea team that won the Champions League or the Italian team that won the Euros. He is used to those big matches and performing and making the right decision at the right time. And that's really what it comes down to. If you can, I mean, you have to be aware of what's around you. And against Southampton, and even Xhaka, like I agree with Alex, definitely not a legend, but like that Liverpool day, all he had to do was keep cool, like keep calm.
Yeah, I mean, we were all. Do you know what? Because of what happened last season, it's just when he did that, and as soon as they scored, as soon as that happened, and you just knew, and he left it too late to put Tierney on. Because Zinchenko got done down the right. I think Zinchenko might have been playing with an injury. He's not been the same player when he came back from when he got injured.
I don't believe that, Paul.
He had Tierney warming up, and he just 5 minutes earlier, if we'd have got Tierney on, I think that goal wouldn't have happened.
Because I mean,
isn't good enough as a left back. He's wonderful left midfielder.
Well, listen. I listen. Zinchenko is probably the best technical player we have, but at the end of the day, to get over the line, especially against teams like City, we need to be nasty, we need to be mean, we need to be ugly on occasion. The best teams have to mix it. I mean, look at the Invincibles teams that we had. We've got a comment earlier on that someone said they were a perfect blend of players. You know, you think, okay. Well, our team now are technically probably much better than the Invincibles were. But would you bet if you had you wouldn't bet against the Invincibles? Would you bet Silva? He'd chop you in two. But he wouldn't get booked for it because he was clever. And you had Perez, and you had Lundberg, and then you unreal. You look at it. You just our players now. We're getting a team that we could be proud of, but I still think there's room for improvement, and there's some amazing bargains to go out there and get.
Paul, I was watching that Mikel Antonio last night, and you compare him to our current Vieira, and there's a world away. One guy is you could blow and he falls over, and that Mikel Antonio, there was one bit where the centre back went near him, and he just kind of swiveled his hips, just tapped.
It's a big one.
Like goes sprawling, and off he goes. He's got brawn, he's got bravery, he leads the line. We need one or two players like that, mountains that can, just bring them on, make the defenders think, oh, this isn't going to be a touch game. I'm going to be up against a tough guy here.
I need to see more of that Ferguson at Brighton.
He's lovely. Tim knows all about this guy.
He made his senior football debut for Bohemians. I worked literally right beside Bohemians at 14 years of age. 14! He was playing adult.
Boy, he's a big old lad, isn't he? I mean,
he's from a place in Ireland called Meath. And to be honest, the Dobermans walk in pairs there, like. You're fucking angry country, like.
Angry.
And he's a rough I mean, the whole Irish national team is based around him.
Tim, I've just worked out we should be Arsenal's Irish scouts, because he playing for Bohemians when he was 14.
The likely lads.
They give us every now and again. We're quite happy to,
Is there a drink and stuff like that?
Yeah, there should be.
Yeah. So, Glenwyn, come the summer transfer window, roughly how many players do you think Arsenal will need to go and buy, and what positions?
As like Paul said earlier on, you need 20, or somebody I think said that we need 22 players of the same caliber. So I think we need another 11. Well, but one.
No, all we need is Ferguson plus 10 more.
Look, I mean, there is obviously positions that are really, really in need of a quality backup. Which is, again, the midfield. We are very slim in the midfield. Our midfield is it's weak. I mean, Partey has lost balls in the last couple of games. like Vieira, our current Vieira, has done in one game. So you can't have a midfield that has been brilliant throughout the season and come at the last end of the season. You need to have a strong backup. Again, Paul mentioned early on, if City makes a change, who do they bring on? They bring on Foden, they bring on Mahrez, they bring on Silva, they bring on Gundogan, or Gundogan has been playing for a long time now, but they have a backup system that is as quality as is your first team. So, I mean, we are, again, with the stubbornness of the manager and his crew, we are light years behind that. So you need to get in the likes of, or similar to, Declan Rice or Caicedo or Lavia from Southampton, or Lavia Boyki. I love him. I love the way he plays. He's 19 years old, so he's going in for big boys. He's going in against the Rodrigues of the league. He's going in against the Casemiros. So that boy is 19 years old. He's a good age, and he is in the position that we need. So, I mean, Southampton is gone. So get him in as a good quality backup player, and he fits the bill of the age. So again, there is already a squad player, and you go down the ranks. Your defense is putrid for the last 7 weeks. So you need good quality backup. Tierney, it's a centre back, and I always said it in my show and on this show. Zinchenko, most of the goals or conceded goals or even ball losses came through that position as a left back. Yeah. He's not a left back. He is not a defender. He's a forward-thinking offensive player. So you need a Tierney to stay there, or even Tierney moving into a centre left back. We need strikers. We need strikers. Jesus is not going to get us over 15, 20 goals a season. He's impact player, but he is a winger by trade, really. So we need a out-and-out striker to bring in the plan B, to bring in the plan C. It is frustrating to see the ruthlessness of what the fans want, and we're not getting. We want these things. We can see it ourselves. We're not managers, we're not coaches, but we can see what can be changed in the team. How can he, as a coach that has got all his badges, cannot see that? You should be able to see those things. So there must be something drastically happening this season for us to compete in.
I think he needs coaches who will challenge him.
Yes,
I do worry that if you want to keep your sort of job there, you keep nodding and agreeing with him.
Yeah,
that doesn't work.
Totally agree.
Mertesacker maybe an option for that.
Who?
Mertesacker, our youth coach.
Oh, Mertesacker. Well, why not?
Yeah.
You need to, sometimes as a man, listen, no matter whatever level you're at, whatever level you play, when you manage a team, sometimes you've got tunnel vision. And all it takes is someone to mention something, you think, and you think differently. And it's the same in any walk of life. You need someone can set you off and think laterally, and you make a decision. So even at my kids' football that I manage, one of the guys that does it with me, he mentioned something. So we tried something different. And all of a sudden we found one of the lads, he found his position. Okay, just by trying something new, something different.
Yeah.
And look, sometimes you fall into it. And if Mikel has a look at himself and saying, okay, we've had a good successful season, but where could we improve? Where should we improve? What could I have done better? He will be doing that. I'm sure he will. And I'm sure if his coaching staff had anything about it, they'd be saying, Gaffer, maybe, let's have a look at what we did. What would we do different? And if they're not doing that, they should be doing it. All of them.
Yeah,
Paul, can I ask you a question? It might be an unfair question, but I'll ask you the question nonetheless. Do you think if Pep had been the manager with having these players, do you think he would have got them over the line and won the Premier League?
It would have went to the last game of the season. Yeah.
Right.
I'm not saying we would have won the league because you look at those players that City have. But listen, Pep's been lucky in his career. He's had stellar players to play with. Having said that, he's not afraid to make bold changes. He's failed sometimes on bold changes. Let's be honest, he has. But he's not afraid to make bold changes when things ain't going well. Well, do you know what? I'm going to try something new. And do you know what? The Arsenal fans will get behind the manager if they try and do something like that. Like they've got behind the team. There's been times where they could have got on the team's back when things weren't going so well. But when we're losing, who was it? Against Southampton, they got behind the team.
Pep, like I swing both ways with Pep, but sometimes I love it. But when he went to Barcelona first, Busquets, Xavi, and Iniesta were all he got all those players up. Really, Arteta. Now I know Saka is a product of Arsenal, but he hasn't really brought that kind of. Reece Nelson, like you said, has he shattered his confidence? Emile Smith Rowe, he hasn't shown the confidence maybe in himself or the confidence in the players with his coaching ability. And on the other side of it, then he did he overbet on Thomas Partey that he's a big money signing, I have to make him work and he probably overextended his goodwill towards him, and really ultimately, I'm not saying he was the reason. Obviously, it was injuries and fatigue and all things, but he was the one central player that really kind of let us down later on. Jesus, I know didn't score the goals, but he was missing for a lot of the season. And as Glenwyn pointed out, he's really possibly more of a creative kind of peripheral player anyway.
The thing is, why didn't he bring Nketiah? Listen, Eddie leads the line pretty well. Listen, he can miss chances, we know that, but he's in there to miss chances. And he's killing himself to get in there. When I look at Jesus, I see a player that can hold the ball. He's beautifully skilled. But when you're looking, the ball's going across, you need someone to break and bust a gut to get on the end of that. And I'm not seeing that many, the Ian Wrights of this world that remember the channel running that he used to do. The ultimate striker for me. I keep saying to my son, look at Ian Wright videos, the way he used to just try and pick games up by the scruff of the neck, and just the effort that he gave. That's what I'd want to see. Tony, I think, would be, I don't know, there's something about his psyche that I think would help us. The problem is that the gambling thing, and it's January, but I think that would be a good move, but maybe too late because I don't know, but
look, in football, half a season goes very quickly. So January is not that far if you look at it. I mean, he's got what, 3 months from now up until the season starts again.
Well, this is it. If we've got
5 months, which goes very quickly, and I think we still should give it a chance in terms of. In January, who knows where we are in January, and that is where we're going to start needing players to obviously come in. Then we don't.
Well, he would be a shot in the arm, wouldn't he? He would be. I mean, because it gives you something different, and going back to where we're talking in the beginning, a plan B. Because what he has got is strength of character, and you can see it in him, and I believe that's where Arsenal have lacked and be getting over the line. And the other side of it is maybe the reason they haven't got over the line was because of a little bit of brittleness in confidence. Do they actually believe it? Do they actually really believe? And you need to, that's the thing.
That's the thing. And we've been also saying many a times is who is the leaders that can take us over that line? We have leaders that are vocal, we have silent leaders, but do we have a prominent leader to say, come on, man, let's go over the line. We don't have those because if Xhaka's head fall, if Tierney's head fall, if Gabriel, I see he took the armband the other night. If his head fall, if Odegaard's head fall, who else is there left to pick up the guys and lead them over the line? So we need a leader, and Tony is one of those leaders. I've seen him in that Brentford team, how he leads the players, how he commands and demand whatever he needs from them. He's now taking the armband in the last couple of games, and that brought in such different character from his side. And I mean, it is good to see that there is players out there that can lead the youngsters. Jorginho came in as a leader. He didn't get enough game time in order to show forth that leadership on the pitch. You can maybe do it from the sidelines. It's not the same thing. You need to be in the mix of things in order to do that, because we've got so many young players, and none of those senior players was there.
Oh, Messi's available. Hey, we'll take him. We'll take him.
Yeah.
Well, Paul,
no, honestly, would you guys take him? Even now?
His wage bill is too high. I mean,
he'd pay for himself in people buying Arsenal kit. Messi on
we
the
didn't have the Tal brothers to play for free, so you didn't have to get some other guys to play to afford Messi.
Well, I'll tell you, listen, the stranger things have happened in football. Stranger things have happened.
Well, Paul, Glenn Wynn, the H-Men, we have to call this live show to an end. The hour went very, very, very quick. I didn't even get to read any of the comments in the live chats. But Paul, it's always a pleasure to have you back on Cannon 40 TV. Say hello to your father from everyone on Cannon 40 TV.
Brilliant Take care, everyone.
The H-Men. The H-Men.
Hey, all the way from Ireland.
How do we do that? I don't know. How do we do that?
There we go.
Oh, there we go. And the G-Man, Glenn Wynn. Glenn Wynn, thank you so very much. And that's
pleasure.
What you do on lunchtimes, really, really good, really good. Guys, if you're watching now, make sure that you do subscribe to Gooner Matters, wonderful content, because he's one of our one of our panelists as well, content creators. But that's it, people. And actually, we're back in action tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, dearie me. The thoughts of Cloughie. Guys, a quick prediction, Paul.
3-2, Arsenal.
Right. H-Men.
3-1.
Yeah, 3-1. I go 3-1. 3-1.
I'm going for 4-0.
Oh!
All right. On that note, this has been Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over this world.